Let's start with a simple, undeniable truth. Money is a huge part of our lives. It's the tool we use to get food, to have a place to live, and to do, well, almost everything else. Think about it. From your morning coffee to the phone you're probably holding, money was involved. It's the language of transaction, the medium of exchange that powers our world. And yet, for something so incredibly central to our existence, we often learn about it through a series of clumsy, expensive mistakes. We are handed this powerful tool with almost no instruction manual, which, when you think about it, is a little bit terrifying. It's like being given the keys to a car without ever taking a driving lesson. Understanding how money works is not just about getting rich, it's about making informed choices. It's about knowing the difference between a need and a want. It's about understanding that small financial decisions today can have massive consequences tomorrow. For instance, knowing how to create a simple budget can prevent the stress of living paycheck to paycheck. Learning about compound interest can turn a small savings account into a significant nest egg over time. This isn't abstract, high-level economics. This is practical, everyday knowledge that empowers people to build stable, less stressful lives. It's the kind of knowledge that helps you navigate the world with more confidence and less anxiety. But here's the weird part. For most of us, our formal education barely touches this subject. We spend years learning about the Pythagorean theorem, the political history of the Holy Roman Empire, and the Krebs cycle. And don't get me wrong, all of that is fascinating and important in its own way. I love learning about that stuff. But when it comes to practical skills like how to file taxes, what a credit score is, or the dangers of high-interest debt, the classroom is often silent. It represents a massive gap between what we learn in school and what we desperately need to know to function as adults in the real world. This absence of financial education is a universal experience for millions of students. We graduate high school knowing how to dissect a frog, but not how to understand a rental agreement. We can write an essay about Shakespearean tragedies, but we can't explain the terms of a student loan that will follow us for decades. This isn't a failure of the students, it's a failure of the system. We are prepared for academic tests and university entrance exams, but we are left completely unprepared for the real-world final exam of managing our own finances, a test that, unlike a history final, continues for the rest of our lives. So why is this happening? Why do our schools, institutions designed to prepare us for the future, so consistently skip lessons on money? One of the biggest reasons is simply tradition. Education systems are like massive, slow-moving ships. It takes a lot of effort to change their course. For centuries, the core curriculum has been focused on academic subjects like mathematics, literature, history, and science. These are the pillars of what has long been considered a proper education. Personal finance, on the other hand, was often seen as something to be learned at home, a private family matter rather than a public educational responsibility. This traditional mindset is deeply embedded in the structure of our schools. Another major hurdle is the already packed curriculum. Teachers and school administrators are under immense pressure to meet standards in a wide range of subjects. There's a constant push for students to score well on standardized tests that focus on, you guessed it, math, reading, and science. Adding a new subject like personal finance means something else might have to be cut, or teachers would have even less time to cover the material they are already required to teach. It becomes a question of priorities, and in a system driven by test scores, subjects that aren't on the big test often get pushed to the side, regardless of their real-world importance. Then there's the issue of who would even teach it. Teaching personal finance effectively requires specific knowledge. A math teacher might be great at calculus but may not feel comfortable explaining the stock market or different types of insurance. An economics teacher might understand macroeconomic theory but not the practical steps of creating a personal budget. There's a significant lack of teachers who are trained and certified to teach personal finance. Without qualified educators who can make the subject engaging and understandable, any attempt to introduce it into schools could easily fall flat, becoming just another boring, mandatory class that students tune out. Instead of practical financial skills, our schools prioritize subjects that are easier to measure and standardize. We learn complex algebra, which is brilliant for developing logical thinking, but not directly useful for most people's daily lives. We memorize historical dates and scientific formulas. Again, this knowledge is valuable for creating well-rounded individuals and critical thinkers. I am a huge fan of knowing things, but the system's intense focus on these academic areas leaves no room for the practical life skills that are just as crucial for navigating adulthood. The result is a curriculum that excels at preparing students for university but falls short in preparing them for life itself. The consequences of this educational gap are very real and often very painful. When young adults step out of the structured environment of school, they enter a world of financial decisions they are completely unprepared for. They are suddenly faced with credit card offers, student loan payments, rental agreements, and car loans. Without a foundational understanding of concepts like interest rates, debt, and credit scores, it's incredibly easy to make mistakes. A simple error, like overusing a credit card with a high interest rate, can quickly spiral into a mountain of debt that takes years, or even decades, to pay off. These early financial missteps create a cycle of stress and anxiety. Being in debt is not just a numbers problem, it has a profound impact on a person's mental and emotional well-being. The constant worry about making payments can affect relationships, job performance, and overall happiness. Many young people find themselves trapped in jobs they dislike simply because they need the income to manage their debt. This lack of financial freedom limits their choices and prevents them from pursuing careers they are passionate about or taking risks that could lead to greater opportunities. The stress of it all is a heavy burden to carry, especially when you're just starting out. This lack of knowledge also makes people more vulnerable to predatory practices. Payday lenders, high-interest credit card companies, and various scams specifically target those who are financially inexperienced. An individual who doesn't understand the fine print of a loan agreement is much more likely to fall into a debt trap designed to be difficult to escape. A basic education in personal finance would act as a form of defense, equipping students with the critical thinking skills needed to identify and avoid these predatory offers. It's about giving people the tools to protect themselves in a complex financial world. Ultimately, the failure to teach money management in schools has a long-term economic impact, not just on individuals, but on society as a whole. A population that is burdened by debt and financial stress is less likely to save for retirement, start new businesses, or invest in the economy. This creates a drag on economic growth and contributes to wider issues of wealth inequality. When people are financially fragile, the entire community is less resilient. By not teaching these skills, we are essentially setting up a significant portion of the population for a lifetime of financial struggle, which has ripple effects that we all feel. The good news is that fixing this problem doesn't require a complete overhaul of the entire education system. We can start with simple practical solutions. Schools could introduce a mandatory semester-long course in personal finance for high school students. This course wouldn't need to be overly complex. It could cover the absolute essentials: how to create a budget, the basics of saving and investing, how credit scores work, the difference between debit and credit, and the fundamentals of filing taxes. The goal isn't to turn every student into a financial expert, but to provide them with a foundational toolkit for adult life. To make these lessons stick, they need to be connected to the real world. Instead of just talking about abstract concepts, teachers could use real-life examples and hands-on activities. For instance, a lesson on budgeting could involve students planning a mock budget for their first month after graduation. A lesson on taxes could involve filling out a simplified tax form. Guest speakers, like a local bank employee or a financial advisor, could come in to share practical advice. Making the subject matter relevant and interactive is key to keeping students engaged and ensuring they retain the information long after the class is over. These lessons don't even have to be confined to a single standalone class. Financial literacy concepts can be woven into the subjects that are already being taught. In math class, word problems could be about calculating compound interest on savings or the total cost of a loan. In social studies or civics, discussions could focus on economic policies that affect personal finances, like minimum wage or tax laws. By integrating these ideas across the curriculum, schools can reinforce the importance of financial literacy without having to add a whole new department or overload their schedules. It's about being creative and seeing the connections that already exist. In the end, teaching students about money is one of the most important things we can do to prepare them for the future. It's a matter of equity, empowerment, and well-being. Understanding money gives people control over their lives. It gives them the freedom to make choices that align with their goals and values. It reduces stress and builds a foundation for a stable and secure future. In a world that is increasingly complex and financially demanding, giving students this knowledge is not just a good idea. It is an essential responsibility. It's time our education system treated it that way.